השלום, מלאך העליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. שלום, מלאך השלום, מלאך העליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ויהי ברכו לי לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי העליון, ויהי ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Call on Shema to hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Call on Shema to hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Baruch Adonai leolam, amen. Amen, amen. Baruch Adonai mitzion shochem, Yerushalayim, hallelujah. Call on Shema to hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Call on Shema to hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Baruch Adonai leolam, amen. Amen, amen. Baruch Adonai mitzion.
Not tell audience.
Okay. Go ahead. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Please bear with me as I make some announcements about safety. For safety and courtesy, please silence your cell phones. And with seating limited in the sanctuary, please make room for others in your row. So a little bit of extra space would be good. Before the service begins, I'd like to direct your attention to the emergency exits and other safety features. Look for the red and green lights above the doors. Those are the exit lights, and there are exits on each side of the bima behind the curtains, and there are also exits at the back end of the social hall. And at the side of the sanctuary, beyond the sliding doors, are the exits to the main doors with which you entered, and exit doors on either side of the lobby. There's a fire extinguisher and an AED near the water fountain in the hall, and another fire extinguisher is inside the doors to the sanctuary where you entered. And please look now and find the exit that's nearest to you. And if you want to study the safety card on the back seats in front of you, that would be a good thing to do. And finally, in the unlikely event that we must evacuate, we'll meet at the southwest corner of the parking lot, away from the buildings. And thank you for your attention. Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome, everybody. Let's take a deep breath. Shabbat Shalom. We get ourselves present in this space. We're going to begin on page 24 in our Sidurim, which you'll find in your seats there, in your seat backs, with Shalom Alechem.
Shalom Alechem, Shalom Alechem, Malachei Hasharei, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Bochem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Come on, join me. Shalom Alechem, Shalom Alechem, Malachei Hasharei, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Huni L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Alechem, Shalom Alechem, Malachei Hasharei, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Seichem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Alechem, Shalom Alechem, Malachei Hasharei, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Turn to page 20 in our books. We turn to page 2 in our books. So we turn back toward the beginning. As we bless our Shabbat lights, I invite everybody who's able to please rise. I want to welcome everybody who's joining us at home and encourage you to say hello in the chat so that you can welcome each other. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kireshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
You may be seated. A note before we jump into Lecha Dodi, a note on the calendar. We just made blessing over our Shabbat candles. In some synagogues tonight, they'd be making blessing over Shabbat candles and Yom Tov candles and festival candles. At Temple Beth Israel, we follow the Reform calendar and also the Israeli calendar in that sense, in the sense that Pesach is 7 days and not 8. And I'll talk a little bit more when we get to the drash about the curious place that puts us in a diaspora community and some of the ways that we adjust for it. But just so that people that our service this evening, and we're sort of in an intermediate place because you couldn't, our oneg tonight is a Passover oneg because you couldn't have the stuff before Shabbat started, and then Shabbat was here already. So you still have, even though it's not Passover, you still have the Passover stuff. So that's the way that it plays. So we're going to turn to pages 20 and 21.
Something else they would not be doing if they were in a traditional
Turning to
conservative-
pages 20 and 21?
Well, no, Lecha Dodi.
Oh, yes, because it would
it's
be a festival. Yes, okay. But it's not a festival for us, so we're good.
But I'm feeling very festive. So.
I deal with this all the time, so it's just part of mine. All right. So we're going to take a moment, as is our custom, before we enter into Lecha Dodi to review our week, to go back to last Shabbat. And, of course, last Shabbat we were just bringing in Passover, and to spend a moment on each day and its challenges and on its blessings. And then we'll come back together, sing Lecha Dodi. We'll sing together verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. 1, 2, 5, and 9. When we get to verse 9, we'll rise and face the doors of the sanctuary for those who are here, and if you're at home, face the door to your home to welcome the Shabbat presence and the Neshama Yetera, the extra soulfulness that travels with us during Shabbat, into our space and into our hearts. Lecha Dodi.
Dodi, likrat kala penei Shabbat, nekabla, lecha dodi, likrat kala penei Shabbat, nekabla, shamor v'zachor v'dibor echad. Ishmi'anu el hamyuchan, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, l'shem u'tiferet v'litchila, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nekabla, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nekabla, likrat Shabbat, lechu v'nelecha, ki mekor habracha, מרוץ מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי כי ראה אורך קומי אורי. אורי שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה.
If you're able, please rise and face the doors.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה. תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה.
We turn to page 26 and continue with Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא יברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי, וחייכון וביום אחד ובחיי לכל בית ישראל. בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה אריכו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא, ואמרו Amen.
Baruch Hu, our call to prayer, page 28.
Lai 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 Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Lai 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 la la lai 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 Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed Ya lai la lai 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 la lai 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 lai.
You may be seated. Last three lines in the Hebrew, page 30, El Chai V'Kayam.
El Chai V'Kayam Tamidim L'Chaleinu Le'olam Va'ed Baruch Atah Adonai
Shemo.
Amariv Aravi.
Amen. Page 32. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people, Israel.
Be'ahavadecha atasir mimenu le'olamim Baruch Atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Amen. Page 34 and 35, Shema Yisrael, if it's your custom. You can stand, please stand.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
You may be seated. We continue on page 36 with Ve'ahavta.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol lavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam le'od al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
So we just concluded the seventh day of Pesach, of Passover, and tradition teaches that on the seventh day of Passover we cross through the sea. I guess today, metaphorically, we cross through the sea, but the story is, at least according to our mythological story, as we come out of Egypt, that we leave at the beginning of Passover, and we get to the sea and cross through at the seventh day. And so today's experience has been a little bit in the Passover world about making that transition, moving from one place to another, coming out of that narrow place to a different place. And some of us I mentioned this morning in our morning service, but the narrowness, the word tsar is in the middle of Mitzrayim, which means narrowness, and the early Hasidic teachers talked about Egypt being both a place, a physical place in Egypt, but Mitzrayim being a spiritual place, a narrow place of fear and of pain and of difficulty. And all of us have had those difficult, narrow places that we have come out of in our own lives. We also, many of us, have those difficult, narrow places that we find ourselves at this moment in our lives. And Mi Chamocha is both a prayer of gratitude, but also a prayer in that sense of hope, right? Gratitude for those narrow places that we've come out of, and a prayer of hope for those narrow places that we find ourselves in, that we come out on the other side with an ability to find a path forward. Mi Chamocha, page 40.
מי כמוך האלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. Sefala Malchutecha Ra'u Vanecha Bokei Ayam Lipnei Moshe Miriam Zezeli Anu Ameru Adonai Yimloch Leolam Va'ed Bimi Chamocha Vailim Adonai Bimi Chamocha Nedar B'Kodesh Noratei Osei fala nora tehilot. Osei fala Yifadar Onai et Yaakov Ugalo miyad Hazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai
Shemo.
Gal Yisrael.
Amen. Page 42, Hashkivenu, we ask the Holy One to shelter us with a Sukkot Shalom, with a shelter of peace, to let us lie down with a sense of wholeness and to rise up with a sense of purpose each day.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim ufroz aleinu sukat shlomecha ushmor tzedenu ugoenu ufroz aleinu sukat shlomecha ushmor tzedenu ugoenu hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukat shalom Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim Amen.
We give thanks for Shabbat, for the opportunity it gives us to connect with God and with our community and with our deepest selves, for the opportunity it gives us to take a little bit of a breath in the busyness of our weeks. Vishamru, page 44.
Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat Lidorotam Brit Olam. Let's try it together. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat Lidorotam Brit Olam Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael Oti le'olam Ki sheshet yamim Asa Adonai Et hashamayim Et ha'aretz Uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat Lidorotam Brit Olam V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat.
I'd like to invite Ari Medina to come up and help us with the next section. We turn to page 46 as we prepare for our Amidah. I invite everybody who's able to do so to please rise. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Just take off your mask so that you can be ready. Take off your mask.
Adonai, Sephatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagi Techilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise.
This book up here.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Velohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Velohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Velohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Koneh HaKol, V'Zocher Hastei Avot V'Imaot, Umevi Glula Livnei V'Nehem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah. Atagi Bor Le'olam Adonai, Mehaye HaKol atah, Rav Lechoshiach, Murid Mehalkel Chayim Bechesed, Mehaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofech Olim, Umatir Asirim, Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar. Mi hamocha ba'ogiverot umidomela melech mimi umechaye umatzmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman atal hayod hakol. Baruch atah Adonai mechaye hakol.
Page 52. You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Baruch atah Adonai,
Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo.
Ha'el HaKadosh.
Amen.
Please take a few moments for the silent prayer for the text of your own heart. You can also use the words of the prayer book through page 62, 63. When you're through, please be seated.
Shabbat Shalom. Not going to say much other than this tune is used on two different occasions. Obviously for Passover, it's a song that marks the opening of the door for Elijah the prophet and the fourth cup of wine, and also used for the Saturday evening Havdalah service. So this is Eliyahu Hanavi.
So I mentioned that at least in the American Jewish calendar, we're in a funny time. It really only occurs when the additional day of a holiday that is added in the diaspora, meaning outside the land of Israel, in Orthodox and conservative congregations, falls on Saturday. Falls on Shabbat, that it changes the Torah reading cycle. So most of the time, in Israel and in the United States, we're reading the same Torah portion on the same week. But what will happen now is, in Israel, this Shabbat is Achrei Mot. They move on to the next Torah portion. In conservative and Orthodox synagogues in the United States, this is a special portion on the Shabbat for the 8th day of Pesach. And we will be off for a number of weeks, out of sync, until we get to a place that there would be a split Torah portion, and it'll be put together in Israel or split in Israel and kept together in the United States so that it catches up. So in Reform congregations in the United States, there are 3 different observances. There's one that's sort of the official Reform one, and we'll get to that one last because that's sort of what we follow. But there are really 3 different observances. Some Reform synagogues today they would be reading tomorrow, reading the 8th day Pesach reading, because that's what the other synagogues in their area are reading, and it's easier to keep everybody literally on the same page, right? Some synagogues say, we believe we don't add the extra day, so we should just follow the Israeli calendar. And so they follow the Israeli calendar, and they'll be out of sync with the rest of the non-Reform diaspora calendar for a number of weeks. And the problem and that's probably the most ideologically consistent answer. The problem is, all those calendars you get from mortuaries and from different things that your synagogues hand out, and when you go to the internet and you try to figure out what the Torah portion of the week is, it's going to be off for a number of weeks until it gets back in sync. And then if you go to reformjudaism.org, reformjudaism.org, what you will find is that this week says Achrei Mot 1, and next week says Achrei Mot 2. right? So they take the next Torah portion, they split it so that we aren't observing today as a Chag, as a festival, and reading a festival portion, but that within a week we're back in sync with the rest of the diaspora community. And so that, Temple Shalom, and while they're reading a different portion this week, by next week we'd be reading the same Torah portion again as Temple Shalom in Ontario, right? We'd be on the same calendar. So that's all just for information's sake, because it happens every now and then. We get this confluence of Shabbat and the extra day of the holiday, whether it is the second day of Shavuot or whether it is the 8th day of Pesach or something like that. So for us, Passover has now ended, and yet as Passover has ended and Shabbat has come in, I'm reflecting on my Passover this year and on reading and studying I was doing this year. We taught a Passover class this year in which we tried to focus on the variety of Jewish experiences and as they come together in for Pesach, different rituals and customs and things with Jews in different places in the world. And so I was reflecting on that, and that's some of the things we did at our own Passover Seder on my first night at my brother's house this year. And I want to kind of talk a little bit about some of the diversity that comes into our experience. Syrian Jews, at least some Syrian Jews, place matzah on their backs during the Passover Seder and walk around the table with matzah on their backs, saying, "This is matzah, the bread of affliction. We are leaving Egypt and are on our way to Israel." Others, and many of you have seen this, take scallions, and during Dayenu they hit each other with them. That's both a Persian and an Afghani custom during Dayenu. There are actually places that people take just a little bit of powder, like sprinkle from real bricks, right? A little bit of, and scrape a little bit and mix it into their haroset, right? I guess not enough so that it's chunky, it's crunchy, but just a little bit of dust, because it's supposed to be, right, symbolize the mortar. And haroset is one of the places in our own Passover Seders. My sister-in-law always makes a whole bunch of different kinds of haroset. So she'll make, the traditional Eastern European, as one of the preschool kids called it, apple salad this year. And but the chopped apples and nuts and wine or juice or whatever you put in there. But there's all these other harosets that are made with dates or with other kinds of things, all often in different shapes. They're often balled, like in little balls. And often we'll have like 5 or 6 different kinds of haroset at our Passover table. And that's always fun to taste the flavors from these different places. And of course, part of that was determined by what were the common kind of sweet foods that people had access to in those countries as they put together their haroset. At some Seder tables, the leaders lift the Seder plate and walk around the table and tap it 3 times on the head of each of the participants. That's a custom in some parts of the world. Hungarian Jews place, I mentioned this in our class, place gold and silver jewelry on the Seder table, because in Exodus 12, chapter 12, verse 35, it says that as we left slavery, we were instructed to ask the Egyptians for silver and gold for us to take on our journey. And so they take silver and gold and they lay it out on the Passover table. And in some communities, the 7th day of Pesach, well, now that's yesterday because it's after sundown, but this morning, people actually, in some communities, pour water on their floors, right, and walk through the water in bare feet. And in some parts of the world, they dance and sing while splashing about, right? Because just as we did with the splitting of the sea, right? But you might think, like, shouldn't we just have one Seder with one codified system of observance and ritual? Midrash explains that at the splitting of the sea, which we observed earlier in our day today, the water actually diverged into 12 separate pathways, one for each tribe of Israel. Should we have not all been unified and shown our solidarity, why travel separately? So the Midrash teaches us a very important lesson, that the Holy One saw that each tribe had its own melodies and its own traditions. And rather than force everyone to give up their family tunes and customs, God created a path for each of us to celebrate in our own way and yet still be going in the same direction. It's a message of inclusion, of embrace, and just, some communities eat rice during Passover and another does not. Their foods are different, their customs are different, and we could talk about this throughout the year, all the different things that we bring different Jewish customs, but also the different things that we bring to our Judaism from the world around us, from the different experiences that we have in the world based on where we came from, or on gender or race or other kinds of things like that, based on whether we were born in the United States or whether we were born someplace else, based on so many different factors, right, that might play into how we experience Jewish life. So we should learn from God's example and make sure that we create paths for everyone to observe and cherish Judaism in their own way, bringing their own family traditions and history to our common table. For true freedom is an attitude that includes loving and respecting and protecting all who wish to be part of our community. And with such expressions of love and acceptance, we can really work toward a day of greater redemption, where we say next year in Jerusalem, next year in a world redeemed. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to turn now to page 253 as we turn our thoughts to all of those in our lives, could be ourselves too, in need of healing, of body, of mind, of spirit. We hold all that pain, all that is need of healing with us, and we carry it along with those in need of blessing. We join in the words in the middle of page 253.
Mi shebeirach avoteinu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen.
We ask for blessings upon Rebecca Gilman, Hannah Fields Austin, Sue Toback, Rosin Lefkowitz, Helen Weinfeld, Pam Poliakoff, Connie Shapiro, Kathy Blumenfeld, Caitlin Antrim, Judith Bosworth, Kathy Brewster, Jennifer Rudin, Marion Snyders, Brad Holland, Beatrice Caden, Meg Silton, Serena Postal, Bobby Kay, Marilyn Freeman, Robert Strober, Marilyn Lubarsky, Ellery Einstein, Patricia Kramer, Joan Morse, Nomi Kravitz, Craig Sachs, Simon Saul, Blair Pollock, Myra White, Lori Snyder, Jeremy Knoller, Charity Razaday, Mike Klein, Lily Morrison, Sarah Kochman, Richard Handley, Barbara Fass, Joel Beasy, Burton Gershman, Carol Berland, Janet Barong, Paula Steinbach, David Bush, Howard Bush, Dana Sundin, Lawson Spicer, Mark Fenton, Toyasha Sabag, Gloria Foster, Ava Bespris, Rita Warshaw, Ira Quatcher. And if you are at home and you want to add a name in the chat, please do so, and you're in the sanctuary as I come by your row.
Mary Ellen DeMarco, Margie Wombevet. Mishabeirach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
So we turn to page 278. Since the second night of Pesach, we, or some of us, however you want to figure that, have been counting the Omer each night. It's a 49-day count from Pesach to Shavuot. Even the name Shavuot, which means weeks, comes from this counting, right? It's 7 weeks between Passover and Shavuot. And we count each night in the evening the Omer. So we begin on page 278.
Hineni mukhan umzuman lekayem mitzvah aseh shel sfirat haomer.
I am ready to fulfill the mitzvah of counting the Omer.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat haomer.
Our praise to you, Adonai, sovereign of all, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to count the Omer.
Hayom Shiva Yamim Shehem Shavua Echad LaOmer.
Today is the 7th day, which is 1 week in the counting of the Omer. So Omer is always counted in days and weeks, but of course up until now we've only been counting in days because today is the beginning, or we've just completed a week, but it will be, when we get to 8 days, it'll be 8 days, which is 1 week and 1 day in the Omer. So 1 week today. And I'm going to invite Jeff Pass back up to the bima to share a few announcements.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. On behalf of the board, thank you for joining us tonight, for being here in the sanctuary as well as online. Thank you to Rabbi Kupitz for leading us in such a learned commentary. I think everybody came away with some new knowledge about Pesach. And thank you to Cantor Bush for his musical leadership, and to Randy for that magnificent performance of Eliyahu. A reminder how live music is such a joy, and coming to Temple to experience it is a blessing. And thank you to Claudia Gonzalez for her technology work, and thank you to so many volunteers that we have. You know, this is a volunteer-led organization, and we could use your help if you're thinking about, well, maybe I should be doing a little more, or maybe I have a little more time. Let us know. We have jobs for you, whether it's a simple task or committee membership or greater leadership than that. Just let us know, and I guarantee someone will call you. Thank you to the outside greeters, Candy Fisher and Kelly Sykes, and the lobby greeters, Laura Zuckerman, Sharon Regaldo, and Phyllis Blakey. And thank you to the parking lot monitors, Dan and Marla White. And after the service, we will gather in the social hall for a kiddush, motzi, refreshments, and conversation. Please take the opportunity to get to know someone new, which will help us continue to build our warm, personal Jewish community. And speaking of building our Jewish community, we have something special that's going to be happening starting on May 15th. We'll be hosting small group meetings in congregational homes or at TBI or on Zoom to explore the future of our synagogue. This is an opportunity to gather with fellow congregants and share thoughts, opinions, and hopes about our beloved Temple Beth Israel. And you could also meet some really cool people and get to know each other and build the community even further. I also have an announcement about the Connection Collection. It's our annual auction. It starts May 5th when the silent auction goes live online. There's lots of wonderful things to bid on live auction on Zoom Sunday night, May 15th at 7 p.m. with trips, gourmet dinners, and more up for bid. Special Connection Saturday night, May 14th at 7 p.m. till 8:30 on our great lawn. So that's outdoors. We'll have wine and cheese and desserts and live jazz, a preview of the live auction, and surprises, concluding with Havdalah, and it's no charge. And one final announcement is on May 3rd, the Social Action and Social Justice Committees have joined together to form a new committee called Team Tzedek, and we've started meeting in person, but the next one will be on Zoom on May 3rd, and we'd love to have you take part in healing the world. Thank you so much. Shabbat Shalom.
So I just want to mention something that's happening on Sunday, just 2 days from now. We are commemorating, as we have every year for the past many years, Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day, with a special program this Sunday afternoon at 4:30 p.m. We are fortunate to have a number of guests who are participating in the program, both from our neighboring congregations, from Temple Beth David, Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center, Temple Ami Shalom, and Temple Shalom of Ontario. Their clergy and representatives will all be here for that. We also have the honor of welcoming Congresswoman Judy Chu, who will participate in our program, along with many interfaith leaders and civic officials from our local community. So I encourage those who are available to join us in person, 4:30 on Sunday. If you can't be here in person, you can join us online on our Facebook page or our YouTube page, and share the moving experience virtually. Thank you.
And thank you to Cantor Paul. He puts this together every year, and he's the one who coordinates all the different congregations and all the people coming together. And so thank you for doing that.
Didn't mention Dr. Polivoy, but Dr. Polivoy has always been an integral part of our Yom HaShoah commemorations.
We turn now to page 282, middle of the page, for Aleinu L'Shabeach. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשינו כגויי הרצון, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 287. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Page 294. We take a moment to remember those who have been important in our lives and have left this earth, those who have died in recent days or at this time in years past. And if you're joining us online, please feel free to mention names you're thinking about, people you're thinking about in the chat. We remember the recent deaths of Esther Bespris, a mother of Ava Bespris. We remember David Grossman, husband of Adrian and father of Mark and grandfather of Sam and Joey and Harry and father-in-law of Van, and much of the Grossman family is with us here this evening. Remember Stephen Gerard, brother of Neil Gerard. Remember Lionel Ketchum, father of Robin Ketchum. Remember the Yortsites, the anniversaries of the deaths of Frederick Hecht, Faye Joan Joseph, Bruce Klein, David M. Lieberman, Jerome Stein, Frida Greenfield, Stephen Rodman Ross, Rose W. Silberman, William Van Grove, Sherman Ansel, Edward Fleischman, Rose Glassman, Ruth Goldenberg, Stella Kelber, Elizabeth Klein, Seymour Kroll, Dorothy Krupnick, Helen Miller, Rebecca Movich, Namiko Pocock, Anna Projector, Leona Ruth Schall, Pearl Judith Steinberger, Toby Wolfson, Minnie Morgenstern, Celia Gohl Rochester, Albert Zaki, Jackie Ina Blatt, Michael Gilman, Norman Lewis, Miriam Lucan, Morton Salvador, Helen Sherman, John Paul Sloan, Michael Dale Wendell, Harry Wohl, Phyllis Cohen, Martha Handelman, Jean Minna Simon, Isaac Vatkin, Teresa Vatkin, Lottie Goldman, Murray Marcus, Gordon William Bill Neal, Jewel Sheldon, Miriam Waller Sudar, and Joseph Zola. If you're remembering somebody on this Shabbat, you'd like to add their name to those I've mentioned or restate a name I've mentioned, please feel free to do so as I come by your row. If you're in a time of mourning or observing a yortzeit on this Shabbat, I invite you to rise. And I invite the rest of the congregation, if it's your custom, to rise and embrace in support of those who mourn. And Kaddish is on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Bi'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayachon v'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru. Amen.
Amen.
Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olomei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dukudasha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiram be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehesh shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories always be for a blessing. And we are going to conclude with Biyado, the last stanza of Vadon Olam, page 321. And if you're able, you can stand for our closing song.
Biyado av kidruchi Ve'tishan ve'ya'ira Ve'imruchi geviati Adonai li ve'lo ira Ve'imruchi geviati Adonai li ve'lo ira.
My soul I give to you.
My soul I give to you.
My spirit in your care.
My spirit in your care.
Draw me near, I shall not fear.
Draw me near, I shall not
Hold me in your
fear.
hand.
Hold me in your hand.
Draw me near, I shall not fear.
Draw me near, I shall not
Safely
fear.
in your hands.
Safely in your hands.
My soul I give to you. My soul I give to you. My spirit in your care. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Hold me in your hand. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Safely in your hand. Biyado av kidruchi. Biyado av kidruchi. Ve'tishan ve'ayira. Ve'imruchi geviati. Adonai li ve'lo ira. Adonai li
your hand.
Please join us in the social hall for Kiddush, Motzi, refreshments. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to all who have joined us online. Thank you for being with us.